Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I get to be your host today. We want to welcome everyone, but we want to say a big thank you to the Weavers Guild of Greater Cincinnati. What an amazing guild. If you don't know much about them, you should learn. They have this beautiful building in Cincinnati. They do these incredible programs, and they sponsor Textiles and Tea. What more could we ask? Thank you, Cincinnati, for being our sponsor today. As always, we will take questions at the end of the program. So if you would, put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. Love your chats. Keep those coming. But I can't always see the questions if they're in the chat and not in the Q&A. And we'll get to as many of the questions as we can today. Today, we are excited because we have Jonpaul Smith. He was born in Logansport, Indiana. Go Hoosiers. He received his M.F.A. and graduate certificate in museum studies from the University of Cincinnati. His B.A. is from Hanover College in Indiana, and he also studied fine arts at the University of Wollongong in Australia. He frequently conducts visiting artist seminars, completed a residency and an exhibition in Budapest, Hungary, Paducah, Kentucky, and was on the working artist residency in the Tiger Lily Press in Cincinnati, Ohio, where he served on their board of directors. He has also exhibited widely in the United States and abroad. His work is included in many private and public collections. He was selected for New American Painters Juried exhibition in print, number 65, along with their 15th anniversary issue. His collections, he's in these collections of the Library of Congress, Cincinnati Art Museum, University of Cincinnati, Purdue University Print Archive, among others. And we are excited to have him here today. Hey, Jonpaul.
Hello. Hello,
Welcome.
everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. Well, let's get started with the important stuff. What is your favorite tea?
Well, honestly, it's a little hard for me to narrow it down to probably one, but my top three would be Earl Grey. I love a good Earl Grey. And then blending one peppermint and wild orange together. That's my afternoon. Yeah, it's quite delicious. It's my afternoon tea.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. And then a chai latte. I'll never refuse a chai latte. So.
That's what I'm drinking today. I've got my chai latte.
Great choice. Great choice.
Yeah. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night, so now it's a dirty chai latte.
Oh, right.
More caffeine.
Nice.
All right. So tell me, how did you get started in the fiber arts or in your art? I don't know if you would call it fiber arts, but in your art.
Yeah. I like to be included in the fiber art world. It's a very welcoming community. So I originally probably wouldn't say that I was a fiber artist, but it's been wonderful to be included and then actually see that greater world. But to go back to the original question, I would say pretty much all of my interest in creativity, especially as I've aged and looked back, really comes from my hometown, the rural area I was brought up in, and honestly, my mother's influences. As a young kid, she made our clothes. She made all the curtains in our house. She could reupholster a couch with just looking at it and pinning the fabric and making a whole slip cover. But to not really categorize her in just what would be considered traditionally female art, she also could rip the front porch off of our house and rebuild that. So there was really nothing that ever stopped my mom or limited her. If she didn't have the knowledge, she would go to my very knowledgeable grandfather for advice, or she'd write to a library and you'd see like 10 books on the table and knew that mom was probably up to something. But also just really there's a long tradition in my family of growing up and coming in, like being in a bigger city, we'd call them artists, but they would never use that big A word. They were just, craftspeople. I think you made out of necessity. And then if you had time with that, you might embellish or make it more decorative. But in general, they were making out of necessity for the household. So I think that's where a lot of my original interest in creativity and in making beautiful things came from.
Well, that's interesting. And because one of the questions later on, I'm going to bring that up about your mom being a kind of make it happen kind of woman, because I see that in your work too. And we'll talk more about that later. So you were a printer, and I guess if you had to list all the things you would do, you probably put a printer at the top, but you cut them up and you weave them into these incredible pieces of work. Here's one of them. And So do you recall, I'm just curious how this came about. Do you recall the
Yeah.
first time you went, hey, I'm going to weave these? Was it like this aha moment, or were you inspired by something, or how did this happen?
It was kind of a transitional process. So in at the end of my undergraduate, really interested in printmaking. So that's
Mhm.
mostly what my body of work was when applying to graduate school. And
Uh-huh.
at that time, again, it kind of harkens back to fiber arts, but I wasn't really thinking that way at the time. I was very interested in doilies and lace work, bobbin lace work. So I was taking those
Ooh,
very intricate patterns and design and translating them into woodcuts and linoleum cuts.
really?
Yeah, so I
Wow.
was doing that for a long time. So that's kind of where I was starting in graduate school. And then getting into grad school, you have to kind of like break down why you're interested in what you're doing, kind of explain why, go for that bigger search of what the context is of why you're doing what you're doing. So at that point, I was really interested in what was elevating painting above prints. And one of the main reason you would do a print is, right, you get a multiple. You invest all this time in a block, either carving a block or a metal plate like intaglio. And you're putting many hours in that. And the product of those hours is I can get 50 prints, 100 prints, something like that, right? So in essence, doing that, it lowers the individual price of the artwork and makes it more accrued to something you could press print versus a painting. So in grad school, I'm thinking these kind of thoughts. So I started making a lot of prints where the original block, what you pull the image from, would be destroyed in the process. So you could only get one print. And this working this way is very experimental. I don't always necessarily know what the print was going to look like. So I was taking like found objects from the street, a crushed aluminum plate, or, those things that are beautiful in a really ugly way that a human hand could never recreate. The way a tire runs over an abandoned little piece of metal thousands of times in all of that history. But the pressure of the press would destroy it. So in this process, you make a lot of really beautiful prints, but you also make a lot of them that are not that great, right? Visually standalone artwork, being self-critical, you're like, well, that's going in the flat files. That's for another day to look at. So I think it was my summer of my first year of grad school, the printmaking studios, including my studio, they were being rehabbed for ventilation. So we had no access to the studios. So I emptied out all these flat files knowing I don't have access to my studio for like a month. And when I brought those home, these prints aren't really great, but they're so full of so much rich texture and pattern and all of this. So kind of harking back to my childhood, my great grandmother collected quilts,
Huh.
and and it was a collection. She took one out every month, and it would hang over the end of the Jenny bed, and you looked at it. We didn't touch it, and then she'd rotate out a new one. It was and as a little kid, right, not really. And she had parlor doors, and they would open, and it was like this whole rebuild. It felt very special as a kid. Anyway, so I was taking these prints, and I was churning them into large paper tapestry quilts. So I was breaking them into grids and squares, log cabin, and I was kind of mimicking those and being inspired by like G's Ben's quilts and the reuse of materials there. So that's sort of how that started. That naturally, just I think by the tactile nature of having paper scraps around the house, that slowly morphed into weaving. And then I kind of haven't really looked back from weaving paper since then. I really can remember the first time I wove paper too was kindergarten. And being from Indiana, it was in May, and we made checkered flag, Indianapolis 500 checkered flags, and it's just stuck with me for years. That just felt so special. I remember bringing it home and waving it around and stuff. But yeah, that's probably how I started weaving paper originally.
Well, it's just so funny how you never know what thing in your life will impact you. It's like you couldn't get into your studio and that set you off on that direction. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Lemonade from Lemons kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
That's
exactly.
amazing.
And just I mean, re-investigating your own scraps of your production. I have a tendency; things are almost like a genesis. touch it once, put it away, and it may come out in 7 years and be the inspiration for something new. So I,
Really?
yeah, it's always a cyclical nature in my studio with things.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things I loved is that you use packaging material. And I was reading some statements that you made, and you talked about how it's so interesting that all the time and money that goes into designing that. I mean, there's companies that do nothing but design packaging, right? And then it it goes to us. We buy it, we may look at it, we may not look at it, and we just throw it away. And I mean, I always knew that, but I never really thought about that until I read, you talking about that. So, was that part of the attraction of using that kind of material? Was that what went behind it and having it give it another life kind of thing?
Oh yeah, so I think I've always been interested in packaging and material from that aspect of consumerism. Want uh, to be that little kid next to your mom grocery shopping, and right, this like cartoon character is just yelling at you from a cereal box, like uncontrollably as a child, right? And you know you're not going to get it, but you still put in that like, come on, mom, I need those sugar pops. Or so that it's always been an attraction to me as a kid, as this want can't have thing. And then my family actually owned liquor stores as I grew up. So, and it was a family thing. So all of us on Sunday after church would go there and straighten boxes or restock. And of course, it's closed at that period in Indiana Sundays, so that the kids were there. But just that idea of facing products to a customer and all the perfect rows of color, or I mean, I still to this day a beautifully stocked grocery store is really amazing to me. Seeing all those products on a shelf and stuff. I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then right when I got out of grad school, my wife at that period, uh, well, she works in senior living now, but she worked for a large beauty firm. And so she did all of the on press for color of labels and color of bottles. And so just seeing that behind the scenes inside of how many meetings and just designers and on the fly calls of, oh, this needs to be a little more green or a little more blue. And in knowing as a consumer, right, after that initial shelf punch of you pulling it off because it called to you or something, that yeah, you are probably just going to put it in the trash and forget about it. But someone is honestly, hundreds of people have spent tons and tons of hours on it. So for me, besides just being attracted to it, all those color choices and putting this together with that color wise or imagery wise, someone's already done a lot of the work for me. When I take that material and use it, that already goes together. I have a tendency to have a very busy mind, so visually, I fill everything. I probably don't know when to stop, so I also kind of like that of putting really garish in brands over brands, and it's kind of the way I feel inundated with not only advertising and consumer culture, but when I go out in the world, it's sometimes like you're driving, you're listening to the radio, you're looking at a car, there comes a billboard, just all that mass information coming at you all the time. I think sometimes I reflect it in my work with that kind of that busyness visually.
Well, I'm trying to imagine what it was like to put all this together because there's just so much. You can just see everything. But this
Yeah.
next image, I love this next image. If we can bring this up. I saw this and it was like Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ashamed to say, I was kind of thrilled, like, oh, it's Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
Again, that was the kid. That was our big treat oh, Pop-Tarts.
Oh, right.
So do people react when you're in a gallery and they are seeing your work, do people react that way to your work? Do they get excited when they recognize something in the work?
Oh yeah, 100%. You can, even if I'm not like talking to them as the artist, you'll hear across the gallery when people recognize things, and they're always pulling over someone else to point it out to them. So it's really fun that way. And I'll work a variety of ways, like with this Pop-Tart one, just only singling out Pop-Tart material, and even that material cutting off all the white, say like the nutritional facts or the UPC labels, or so eventually, you have this whole box, but you may only be using a 4x6 inch section of it. So it takes quite a while sometimes to accrue individual elements to make a whole piece. I've found with adults, when they point something out, a lot of times you'll get a story related to how they've interacted with that product over time. Where kids, it's more of a hide and seek. Hey, look what I found. And they want to tell someone like, oh, look, there's SpongeBob. Oh, there's, right. And they don't have that life experience yet that comes with a big story, where like an adult might come up Pop-Tarts and kind of like you said, they might say like, oh, I only got a Pop-Tart on Saturday if I cleaned my room and all my homework was done. So yeah, you almost always with an adult will get a story related to the product. And that's one thing I really enjoy using found materials as well, is that cultural overlap we have. I've always kind of called it open narrative. Like you see it and recognize it, but your story is what engages you with the work, how you personally interacted with said product or object that you see in the weaves.
Mm-hmm. Well, you use a lot of color to create your designs, and I love how you group the colors in some of your works, but in some of the works, it's like kind of free flowing or spontaneous.
Yeah, for
If I
sure.
am correct on that, I mean,
Oh
that's how
yeah,
I see it.
100%.
So first of all, well, you said I'm correct, but secondly, how do you decide how to use color in your works? Like the one on the left, they're grouped together almost like color and weave, but the one on the
Yeah.
right is a little bit everything. So how do you decide? What are you going for?
So sometimes it's honestly, I want to have like a really great answer that, but honestly, it's like occasionally it's what the material is I've collected. And I'm like, well, it's time to address this giant box of said postcards I've had forever. So the piece on the right, those are all used lottery tickets from my parents' liquor stores that I collected for years.
Really?
Yeah, and that piece is probably 16 inches in diameter. The piece on the left is 7 feet in diameter. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and it's called Another Prop. It's actually based off the BMW symbol. I like punny titles, so it's all commercial goods. The idea that we need commercial goods to make our lives better, a prop. The BMW symbol, a luxury good, is also its symbol is a spinning propeller. That's what the blue and white are to symbolize. So prop as in an airplane propeller. And so the black and white in that is actually show cards from my senior year of my undergraduate thesis that I held on to for probably 20 years. Uh, at that point in time, when
Oh,
you printed postcards, you always had to have a minimum of 1,000.
uh-huh.
And Hanover College is that's probably 75% of the student population. So hence I had a lot of leftover postcards. So sometimes the piece is dictated by like, wow, I have a lot of that, and I'd like to see how I can work that into a large piece. Now, say like the one on the left, I did sketch out a design, draw a big paper template to help me keep everything organized line wise while I created it. The piece on the right, I call that optical mixing, where I've cut all the material beforehand and just have a giant pile that I work from and respond to the pieces it's being created, almost in the way you would in your basic design class, right? Like, oh, it's going a little red over here. I probably need to balance that out with red over here or yellow.
Hmm.
Just really almost your basic design concepts of color theory and how to keep your eye moving is a lot of times how I work when I'm like optically mixing, as I call it. Now, the piece before where you can make out imagery, I call that combined imagery. I know all these silly titles, you make your own work when you, then those start with two organized collages. So I've made really intentional, deliberate collages. Then those two are cut and woven together. So like, yeah, the piece
Oh,
that was,
really?
yeah. So like the piece before Pop-Tarts, the rectangular one,
Uh-huh.
that is made by two super organized collages first.
Oh, okay.
we've been
I
joined
love
by
yours.
a cat on my lap. So in case you
Yay.
see a tail.
Oh, wow. Um, I'm going to shift a little bit here because one
Yeah.
thing I was curious about is that you studied in Australia and you also studied in Hungary, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky
Right.
enough. In my youth, I would work a crummy job, save up money, and then just completely empty my account traveling. So I've been to Japan, Thailand, Hungary, most your common European countries. I've been very lucky to be able to travel a lot. Now as I've turned into my my 40s, it's a little harder to get away than it was with no responsibilities of my youth. So, but no, we still definitely get out and travel.
So how do you think I'm always curious when I talk to artists about how do you think traveling and going to these different places impacts your artwork?
I think for me, it's just being out of place in out of your comfort zone. I mean, every country's a little different, right? Some you'll go
Right.
to and it feels like a different version of home, and then others you go to and every aspect of life is done a little different or viewed a little different. And
Mhm.
I like that challenge as a human, whether it's the difficulties of travel or communication or food that I would probably never eat, but in this scenario, hey, we're gonna do it. And but from an artistic standpoint, in my undergraduate, I was double majored in anthropology and fine art with a minor in art history and geology. I honestly thought I was going to be Indiana Jones. So a lot of my travel in my youth was related to anthropology and that kind of like remote viewing, studying of a culture, more just like, hey, I'm here to take it all in. So in relation to art, for me, there's always an indigenous art style to a lot of these places. And a lot of times it does contain traditional fabric weaving or fabric dyeing. So, like in Thailand, it was all about silk harvesting and silk weaving and some batik work. Japan, indigo dyeing. Besides an amazing history of woodcut and that kind of culture and how they actually use woodcuts for printing. Same in India with like woodblock printing as well. So I just and then, in Australia, you have Aboriginal art, which is just so many bendy dots and patterns. And as a pattern person, I can really respond to that too. Uh, I just think you're also, when you're traveling, I think you're really open to new experiences that maybe you might not necessarily be at home. You have this maybe a more open atmosphere as a person too, because you have to have the help of others sometimes to navigate where you are, what you want to do. So I honestly, I don't think I can contextualize how rich travel is to not only as an artist, but just kind of a person of the world.
Well, I think one of the things that shocked me when I went off to travel in Europe was that to me, museums were out there. They were in New York and big city. I grew up in southern Indiana in the middle of a cornfield, so we have that in
Yeah.
common.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there was an art gallery to go see, or I mean, you could, but you had to go to it. And I think one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
things
It was an
that,
event.
yeah, one of the things shocked me when I was in Europe, every little town had a museum,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
It might be a combination of history and art, but our museums were part of your whole existence in your life. And I think that really kind of shifted how I looked at art as not being out there, but it could be part of your life kind of thing.
But I also just thought it was interesting from the academic standpoint. Most European cultures don't separate art history from history. It's not two separate majors, but we have
Uh-huh.
that here in the States. And to me, I don't know how you can't study one with the other because, right, they always interact and speak to each other. But I thought that was just kind of like you're saying, right? It's more accessible because it feels like every day. So,
This next piece, I chose it because I wanted people to see how large a piece that you work on can be. And this one is, oh, I forgot the name of it. Something I'm
yeah,
sorry.
black eye, I
Black eye.
believe.
How could I forget? Because you can look at it and see. But it just really gives you a feel for how large this piece is. So, what's the attraction for you to work this big?
I think one thing when it's shoot myself in the foot when I say this because I also sometimes work small. But when it's pattern based work or even I just think it speaks the larger you can go, in the sense you can lose yourself in it more. When I approach like this size piece and get within a few feet of it, it takes over my whole peripheral vision as well. So I kind of like that really encompassing feeling of it. I also, as a person, I probably just don't know when to stop. And so I accidentally have always gone large. In my professional life, I do a lot of corporate work as well, healthcare centers, hotel lobbies, things like that. And working at this size is really conducive to those kind of jobs as well. Being able to show our consultants and designers that you can fill a large space. So from like the brass tacks business part of it, it's helpful to work that way as well. And also just having large solo exhibitions in big, traditional white cube galleries. It's also helpful to have a large body of work that shows you can take up all that space. And then to reveal my Midwest part of it, I can roll these up and put them in a tube, and they're very easy to transport versus a giant
Oh, yeah.
framed piece. So I build custom tubes out of concrete form tubes to the exact size of these pieces, and they get rolled around a PVC pipe that floats inside of those concrete form tubes. So that's how they're stored and transported as well. But I like the work to be as large as me or larger. I like that scale. And really, even in my traditional printmaking life, I have a tendency to make larger prints as well. Just kind of work big. Like this butterfly behind me, that's one of my prints as well. I have a tendency to work at that kind of larger scale.
Well, then let's look at the other end because this
Yeah.
next piece we're going to look at is 16 inches in diameter. Um, so I'm always curious when you have this extreme, do you approach the design or the making or just in general, do you approach it differently when you're going big and then you go small?
For sure. One thing that I really play with between the two is just strip width. Um,
Oh,
I
right. Okay.
yeah. So when I go small, I have a tendency to, unless the material dictates that I shouldn't, I usually never go larger than a half-inch strip. Um, After that, it almost, which has its place, but almost gets too much like a placemat versus a fine art piece with repetitive pattern. It gets chunkier and doesn't move your eyes around as much. I also find that sometimes when it's a larger cut on a smaller work, it doesn't deconstruct the original object enough to make it interesting to you. You immediately know what it is because you can read the whole text, or you're not pulled in by the repetitive pattern that is created. Like this piece is Parliament light cigarettes, probably also sourced from my dad's liquor stores. That the parking lots were a great source of a lot of used and discarded materials. But like this piece again, it's probably almost like a year and a half or 2 years of collecting the same material over and over again. And when I work small, like this was deliberately made as a piece. Some really small work are explorations in pattern and color to see if it's worth trying to collect that material in mass to make a larger piece. So like I'll
Oh, yeah.
experiment. Yeah, I'll experiment small before I call every single person I know to say, hey, do you use Kraft mac and cheese? If so, can you hang on to all your boxes? So sometimes I'll do that if I find a material. Just sometimes the way you can cut them and overlap, just the patterns you can make from the actual branding is really interesting. But so to harken back though, it mostly is a strip width kind of change. With really large work, I can put in strips as wide as like 4 or 5 inches and still keep the
Oh,
pattern moving,
wow.
which is
Yeah.
interesting because I find control of strip width and how you use it also is really indicative of the eye speed at which your viewer looks through the whole piece. So by putting in larger chunks, you can make breaks where they slow down. Maybe investigate an individual cell that's created from the woven pattern, especially if you have branding in there. You might be able to make a bigger window so they can make out something versus like a little tiny window that's made by the inner C.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm also curious, what did your parents think when they started seeing what you were making your work out of?
It, I think it's pretty. I still think to this day, being really Midwestern farmer, I think they still don't believe that I do this for a living. Like you make you make things and people want them. So
Out of
we still
cigarette cartons?
yeah. I mean, so I'm 46, but we're still there at that. This is what you're doing. So no, but it really once they're like, well, so I don't think he's changing what he's doing.
Yeah.
No, my dad got really into hanging on to anything from me for the liquor stores. I have things for years and years. I mean, they haven't been in that business probably 7 years now, and I
Oh,
still,
really?
oh yeah, I've got stacks and stacks. My parents are in their mid 80s now and still tough as nails and up on their retired Black Angus farm up in Indiana. So
Oh, that's so funny. I love that. Um, I love this statement. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was a statement you made. Maybe it's on your website. You stated that you like being open to inspiration from the benign. Okay, share more about that. What does that mean? Where did that come from?
well, so just even I think talking about my work in the last hour, collecting things off the street and being interested in product packaging, and I think some of it too just comes from that North Central Indiana farmer mindset of use everything you have to the last little bit. Patch your pants and darn your jeans, and so I got a lot of. I'm the youngest of five by quite a bit, so I got a lot of alone time, and I mean this in a very nice way, but like go over there and be quiet if you could. There's a lot of us over here trying to do. So I had a lot of time playing with, I mean, they might give me an empty wrapping paper tube and some scotch tape and a marker, right? And that, I mean, that's a whole afternoon of
Oh,
fun.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a little kid, that kind of benign. Give me a pencil and the back of an envelope during Sunday mass. I'll stay quiet for a whole hour. So those kind of, but now, like, as I grew up and watched the natural world and other things, I mean, really from the way like a stream meanders to it looks like how a branch grows to the way your veins in your arm look the same way. Or, I mean, really, honestly, you go and make that first cup of coffee in the morning and maybe step outside and you get a great bird chirp and it's kind of sunny. Like that's pretty great too. Or I'm a big cyclist, so just the weird things you can find riding. Like the other day in my garden, I found a perfectly preserved gourd, right? I didn't try to save it. It was just like nature itself and made this perfect egg-shaped little gourd. And I mean, I'm just fascinated with it. Watching a flower unfurl, that's pretty great. Like a vinca or a periwinkle when it's in that
Yeah, yeah.
spiral, like a nautilus shell. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Just small part of a bigger picture, and it's all the same and connected. And that kind of stuff really inspires me. I mean, I really do mean the benign. Like the most common things can be pretty interesting to me.
I
And I
love
think like
that.
if we all had just that fascination for more little things, we'd probably all be a little happier in life.
Well, I was thinking about the paper tube because I will put good money on the fact that if you had that tube, you either did one or both of these things. You bonked somebody on the head with it,
Yeah.
and then you used it as a sword.
Yep.
Everybody
But
does.
also that you can't forget like a Vuvuzela didgeridoo.
Yeah.
That was also, yeah, that was a very common one too. But having a
And
brother
I feel bad
seven
for
years,
I feel bad for kids that don't get to do that. I mean, that
right?
was fun. That was
But
fun.
having a brother 7 years older than me, the sword fight never was in my favor.
Eh, eh,
So yeah,
eh, too bad. Next time I see you, I'm going to make sure I have tubes. And by gosh, we're going to
yeah,
have a
right.
sword fight. All right. All right. This next one is called Tesla Interior.
Mhm.
Um, would you talk about what this is and what it's made out of? Because when I saw it, I completely misinterpreted what it was made out of. It's just very, very cool. As soon as we get it up, Mandy, we're having some technical difficulties today with the images, so I apologize. But I'm always curious how you It's like, do you come across something and you go, okay, I can make something out of this? Or is it more of, I need to make something and I'm going to go find it? Here it is.
Oh,
This is
oh,
amazing.
it's definitely a come across it, and I'm gonna make something out of this. And kind of like I referenced before, I may sit on it quite a while before I know exactly what that is, thing is I'm going to make out of it. This piece, so originally, this is way back when Tesla started, and they only had one model of vehicle, the Roadster. So I had a private client from Indianapolis area that was flying out to California to get his Tesla Roadster and was driving it back. And it was just really big moment for him. So he commissioned a piece about that, which this isn't that piece. It was really large, like 6 by 9 feet, and it hung vertically in his garage above his Tesla or something like that. So these are actually the leftover scraps from that commission. So they're already in their third life from being a Tesla showroom brochure that he collected for me to use, and then I used his leftover scraps. So in this piece, there it's all made out of the brochures at that time that advertised the Roadster and its available options for the consumer. So all the individual colored dots are the color options at that point for the exterior and the interior. So the ones that don't have like the pinking sheer looking cut around the outside, that's for the exterior of the vehicle. And then pinking sheer zigzaggy pattern ones, that's the interior options. And then the bottom color was selected from the front of the brochure, and it's what I think they only had 2 showrooms at the time, but that was one of the flagship showrooms, I think, in LA at the time. And yeah, so this is also where I will study the material for a long time. Because just because you have the whole piece doesn't mean you need to use that for the actual. So like when I have a weaving workshop, a lot of times someone will bring in something and they want to use it to like, it has memory to it. So they want it in the piece, but they have this desire to want to use, say it's a postcard, they want to use the whole 4x6. But if you really say went into like your basic design school and used a 1-inch viewfinder, you might find that only really 1 or 2 areas of that whole postcard is interesting. So learning how to select for the best usable material out of found objects is also part of, the trick of making it work. So say this, I think this was a trifold, it might fold out to like, 7 by 14 inches or something. And the amount I used to only get, I think one brochure is 2 colored dot strips for interior and exterior. So if you can think about how many you're going through to select for that. And so it always has to come to me through natural collection too. Either someone is really using it. I will never deliberately go out and purchase a material for use because that's like adding to the stream instead of taking from the waste stream. So no matter how much I want something or see a brand or a package, I'm like, oh, that's the coolest package. I'll never purchase or buy it. It has to find its way to me. That sounds kind of like metaphysical, like I throw it up to the universe and it comes back to me. But when it comes to materials, I actually do. I don't go out and purchase anything.
I have this vision of you behind some kind of business that has material you want, kind of sitting there waiting,
Yeah.
watching the dumpster going, they're going to throw some of this away and I'm going to get it.
Now, hey, I won't say I haven't picked a recycling bin.
Hey,
That's
I've
totally
dumpster
within,
dived for stuff before,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
that's within the rules. That's totally okay.
that's totally okay. Um, I was thinking about how you must spend, and this goes back to what you were talking about, how your mom figured out how to do things and fix things and make it work. And I'm wondering, do you spend a lot of time doing that yourself on how to make your pieces work? I mean, it's not like you're just putting paint down on a canvas. You got to make this work.
Yeah, the more complicated the imagery and even like strip width, yes, they have to take a lot more planning. Now, if I have just a giant pile of pre-cut strips left over from something else, that's almost like cathartic. I can just sit down and and weave and respond to it, and what is happening. And, that's more free flowing and open minded to me. But especially if you can see like combined imagery and things are matching up or lining up. Yeah, that's all planned out. The really big work where there's color change or shifts, all of that is drawn out on a large paper template, so I know exactly when to shift color or change imagery or things like that. When I originally started doing all this, say, harken back to making quilt forms and things, they originally were rectangular because I just copied the size of the jute rug that I was making them on top of. So originally, no, really, that was like my template. I didn't know how to keep it straight, or so they're all like 6 by 9 feet or 5 by 7, whatever your typical area rug size was at that time. But eventually I branched out and realized, hey, I can make these whatever size I want. So, but yeah, the first few definitely copied the size of my area rug. As a young artist, your studio and your home are quite often the same thing for a long
Yes,
period of time.
yes, yes,
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Well, this next image we're going to show is your notebook. And I love it when I can see the artist's notebook. It's like that. It's like by opening up the curtain and seeing who or what's back there. So, so how do you translate what you put down in this notebook into your artwork?
I really just call it creative play. And a lot of times my notebooks, much like my work, are visited over and over and over again. So almost always the start of a notebook is truly a notebook. Like, oh, March 7th, I need to get this email out. Oh, I need to just note taking, grocery lists, everyday stuff. And in the process of like that everyday stuff, as someone who's really interested in benign things and paper ephemera and trash, I pick things up or things that interest me. And with no thought or consideration to layout, they just get glued in, either over my notes, under my notes. And then I'll kind of start flipping back through, and I may start drawing or painting in it. And so they get reworked over and over again. So you can actually see I, found a Parliament light cigarette box, which later became the weaving. Up in the left corner, I think those are concert ticket stubs. So just,
Ah, okay.
yeah, just honestly, I think I cut it and wove that in a second. Uh, Little caricatures of an old boss. I think that's a cartoon out of like an old Mad magazine. Drawings of my keys at that time. So really just and it's also that creative play of, does this go together or does that go together? Especially as someone who's not afraid of garish colors and slapping colors together that people might necessarily always put together. This is a great place to play with that as well. Um, so
I
I
like
think
it's layering. It's your thing,
yeah,
layering one on
and
top
I
of
think
the
it's just
other.
a great no risk place to play, and
Yeah, I
you
like
can
that. No
share it. You
risk.
can share it
Yeah.
or not share it. And I've always kept a sketchbook, notebook, journal, whatever you want to call it, but
Uh-huh.
I've never taken it crazy serious, in the sense that it's always free, exploratory, and play to me. I don't want it to become something where I'm like, oh, I need a finished product. And then I'm like obsessing about the page, or it's just a place to throw down an idea, revisit it months later when you already forgot about it with your next genius idea that you'll forget about and then remember. And so place for stuff like that.
Well, I was noticing that some of your earlier works, and there's people asking about this, so I'm going to ask about it now. It seemed like your earlier works, and you talked about why some of it was more square, and then it
Mm-hmm.
seems like your later works went to the round. Was that just because of the jute rug, or was there a reason? What's
So
the reason for your shapes?
So I think when it started out, totally, I really was like, especially in the early quilt kind of designs, I really did just copy that jute rug I was on. And then just, I think when you're naturally copying, inspired by, not copying, when you're naturally like inspired by something else in the textile
Hmm.
area of like tapestries or quilts, they're all square for the most part, or rectilinear. So I think that without really thinking of it, I was just kind of copying a format that had already been established a little bit as visually
Mhm.
pleasing. And then if you want to like break it down into, I do a little bit believe in the golden rectangle, like the 2-3 kind of proportion thing, which will almost
Right, right.
always put you in a bit of a rectilinear finished um, shape as well. Uh, and then circles, and I think it kind of went back a little bit to my anthropology days, but like bai or pi discs in Chinese culture, jade discs. I grew up very Catholic, mandalas and halos. You know, going through the coin tray every day in the liquor store looking for silver coins, or I'm drawn to the circle in that sense of a, which if you look across almost every human culture through time, you're going to see a representation of a circular disc. It's tied into all of us for some reason. And I think like a birth rebirth cycle, the recycle symbol. There's just a continuation. I think I moved to the circle as well because when, at least for me, I can't always speak for the viewer, but I have a tendency to look around it more, and it contains my eye more. I think when I got to the square edges, you may go back, but there's like a sense of an end. Um, yeah. So and also you know, just 100%. I don't necessarily know why I really shifted. And I still do make a square piece here and there. And there's even, you know, asymmetrical works I've done as well. And I think this is, as a creative, we almost sometimes get stuck in our own tropes too. So, I mean, to be self-critical, I really do need to explore other shapes and sizes, um, and then
Huh.
sometimes when you're large circles have almost been like a equated with me too for a little while. So it's almost, you know, breaking away from that idea to explore when someone is looking for a large circle from you, but you're like, oh, well, that, you know, I don't do those anymore. Or just, I think I need to explore within my own interests more as well. So I think there's room for growth for me there between a square, rectangular, and a circle. I'll go wild and do a rhombus or something next year. Yeah, parallelogram.
We're going to look for that. We're going to look for
Yeah.
that. So what's next for you?
So I'm excited. Actually, our wonderful sponsors, the Weavers Guild of Greater Cincinnati, this later this spring, March into April, we're doing an exhibition together, and we'll have some workshops that coincide along with that. So
Oh,
I'm ex-
fun.
yeah, really excited to do that. And then teaching some workshops at the American Sign Museum. It's actually going to harken back to more to my printmaking days. We did do a weaving workshop there, but we're going to be inspired. The American Sign Museum has historical advertising signs across Americana from the early 1900s to current, neon signs, hand lettered signs. So really neat place. But we're gonna do some printmaking activities inspired by those signs and architecture, and then finishing up two large projects of permanent outdoor sculpture installations. And it doesn't seem connected to my work, but they're all based around woven patterns or the idea of a weave. So it is connected, but yeah, so those have been taking up a lot of time getting the sculptures all squared away and install and all that stuff. So
So where's the sign museum? Is that in Cincinnati?
here in Cincinnati, yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's yeah in the Cincinnati loves its neighborhood, so we name every part of town. It's in the Camp Washington area, so
Okay.
very near downtown. Kind of Spring Grove Avenue. It's considered an old industrial area of Cincinnati, so just like really neat museum.
I'm gonna have to check that out. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a great afternoon visit if you
Well,
love
we've
neon.
got tons and tons of questions. So shall we? I think some of them you've already answered, but oh, Sarah wants to know, what does the storage look like for you for all this artwork?
So I don't know if it is a little bit inherited from my mother. I am a pretty bad clean freak, so so I battle myself with collecting lots of things and then
Yeah.
organizing them so that you can never see them if you walk into my studio. It's almost sometimes clinical if you catch me at the right moment and everything's exploded out. But especially when it's found materials, it goes through a 3-step process where It comes into my house. I flatten it for months under heavy weights. And then it comes out for its original pre-trim. So say, well, we'll use an example of a cereal box, right? It comes out of that. All the flaps are cut off, the nutritional labels cut off, and it almost always will come down to you just keep the front panel. And then those all, after trim, those all go into weight. So they're super flat. Then they get organized by color and flat files. But I'm a pretty organized guy. But if you come and visit and you're like, oh, where do you keep it? I start pulling out everything, it turns to chaos quite quickly.
A lot of questions about techniques. So some
Yeah.
people want to know, how do you attach like to the round piece? Is that a piece of wood?
No,
No,
it is
no, because you
completely.
roll it up. That's right.
Yeah, it's the weave strength itself. There's no backing whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
And you
only
just use
so
glue?
yeah, I in a PVA glue because I like to have that flexibility. Funny enough, it's a fabric glue. So Sobo is by far my favorite paper glue and has been for 20 years. They really should sponsor me if I was famous enough. Shout out to Sobo. I'll take all your glue. No, so I've
All
used
right,
Sobo.
Sobo, listen up.
Yeah, so
Well, then
it
do
has a
you
great
coat it
drying
when you're
time.
done?
No
Oh,
coating or whatsoever. So black eye is actually that larger piece. That's a mix of black and white photography and prints. So sometimes
okay.
it can be all my prints, which is rag paper. Sometimes it can be all found materials. Sometimes they're blended together. So the only thing, like say on a large circle, that is done to reinforce it is the very outer edge is glued by basically doing over and under, right? A piece of glue on top, a piece of glue under, a piece of glue. So it gets that all the way around the outer edge. And then rag paper, so which is printmaking paper, but right, made out of cotton. So they call it rag paper. It doesn't have any cellulose in it. A 2-inch strip is put all the way around the outer edge and glued. And then depending on the size of the piece, about every 13 inches is another rag paper circle of 2 inches. And then a grommet is put through there. And the grommets are so tiny you can't see them in the large work installed. So that's kind of why it looks invisible. But that's how all the work is installed.
Okay. That was one
Yep.
of the questions where people were wondering, how do you get it up on the wall? Okay.
Yeah, and I think being really inspired by like quilts and tapestries, the way those always free hang off of a wall. But I didn't want to get into like a bar system with like a sleeve on the back. I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
that kind of visual intrusion on the work. So I've always just, yeah, hung the work directly on the wall.
Um, People are asking, this is from Karen LeBlanc. I would love to know more about your public art pieces that are commissioned.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an application process that you have a proposal for, or do businesses contact you? We always have a lot of interest in commission, especially public
Yes.
art. Yeah.
So when I was starting out, it really was all on me, finding the opportunities, applying to them, and really kind of getting that baseline. So really, no different than any other artist. Find an opportunity, following the application process to the T, right? Because I mean, they want, and being lucky enough to receive commissions that way. Now, as I've aged a little and have some experience behind me, it is transferring more into being found and having an opportunity because they've sought me out. But really starting it out, it was exactly the same as it is for all of us, finding an application, 6 images, labeled this way, and a $45 application fee. And, in my youth, it was just exact same thing. But uh, used to work with a lot of your like traditional brick and mortar commercial galleries when I
Mm-hmm.
was younger. That 50% cut. Here's your piece on the wall. And I still work with galleries like that sometimes, but really my business has moved a lot to working with art consultants. And that's
Mm.
kind of a different game. And it's somewhat nice because they're already approaching you because of the way you do your work is something they want in their building. Now, all the in-betweens of what the right price is and size and color. There's a lot of back and forth with that kind of stuff. But I've really worked with a lot of art consultants because designers and builders, seek them out to do the like final art installs and the whole. I think they want to hand that responsibility off to someone, and the art consultants take care of it, and you get pulled into the big placements that way as well.
Well, I can't believe it, but we have to stop. This was
You know,
fast. Boy, this went
yeah,
quick.
yeah, it really does.
I'm so excited that you shared your work with us. It's just fascinating to see what you can do with stuff, with junk, with trash. And you've made it beautiful. It's amazing. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
much.
Well, Kathy and Handweavers Guild of America, I really, it's been great chatting with you, and I really appreciate the invite and having me join you today to speak a little on my work.
Well, I want everybody to go to your website and go see everything that's on there and just learn more about his work and what he's up to. And is the information about your workshop in Cincinnati at the Guild on there?
So I am very good with being up to date on Instagram and Facebook. My website, I wish I was more tech savvy. It will always be unbelievably behind.
So go to
find me on the
Facebook or Instagram.
socials for most up to date stuff. I am sure the Weavers Guild, being the unbelievably organized and professional guild it is, I am sure you can find it on their website right away, because they put me to shame with their speed and organizational skills. So.
Okay, so go to his website and then go to his Instagram.
Yep.
It's okay, Jonpaul. You don't have to do everything. Like I said, we all have strengths. But thank you so much for being on here. And I do want to thank the Greater Cincinnati Weavers Guild. What a great organization. And I think it's so exciting. They're going to have you come and do an exhibit and workshops and everything. So go check them out, Weavers Guild of Greater Cincinnati, and find out what's going to happen. I believe you said March, April, and see what's going on then. Thank you so much, Cincinnati. We appreciate you being the sponsor today. How wonderful. If you're interested in being a sponsor of Textiles and Tea, or your guild or your business, or if you have an event coming up and you want to promote it, all you have to do is go online and you can purchase an episode of Textiles and Tea. If you have any questions, contact the office. Be glad to help you out with that. Small Expressions Jurors Talk. Small Expressions is such a wonderful exhibit. It's our pride and joy. But be sure you check this out. It'll be on Thursday, January the 22nd. It's this Thursday, from 1 to 2. It's online. You can direct register at weavespendie.org, and you can learn more about Tommy Scanlon was the juror, and she's going to talk about the pieces, what she saw in them, why she chose what she chose. If you've never heard a juror's talk, go check it out. It's amazing to hear more about the work and the juror and that relationship. It will change how you look at exhibits from now on. So go check that out. Again, it's Thursday, January 22nd, this Thursday from 1 to 2. So go check that out. Also, just a reminder about the new membership that we're doing. It's a digital membership. If you don't care, if you're one of those people that you want your magazine, then stay with a regular membership. But if you're one of those people that you don't really care about having the magazine, you want it digitally. And when I say not have it, I mean not on paper. But if you are fine with looking at it in a iPad or your phone or your computer, this might be the membership for you. And it's only offered until the end of January. So you got to jump on it now. But it's only $29. And that's like a 47% discount on your membership. But you won't get the paper magazine, you'll get a digital one. So check that out. It's on weavespendie.org. Go to membership, and you have to have the code New Year 2026. And you can get this discount until the end of the month. Okay. We also want to remind you all that we are going to have the sorry, I'm blanking out here. The Guild Retreat is coming up also. That will be later on in the year, January 31st. It's on Zoom, and you can learn more about that at weavespendie.org. We want to thank everybody who's joined or donated. That helps us provide you with all these wonderful programmings, whether it's Textiles and Tea, the Guild Retreat, which is coming up, all this information, it's all that's going to be happening. And it happens because you donate or you join. So if you're interested, go to weavespendie.org. You can join or donate or both. And it will help us keep programming going and give us always looking at what's new, what's next we need to do for our members. Thank you all so much who have joined already. Next week, oh, if you missed episodes, don't forget you can watch them. You can watch this again. You can do it on Facebook for 30 days. You can watch it anytime on YouTube. And just a reminder, if you like watching it on YouTube, subscribe. That way you'll get a notice when a new episode's been uploaded. Okay. Next week, we have Ann Bowers. If you don't know Ann, you got to see this. She does incredible basketry. We're excited to have her. So hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.